Hey there, ScottThinks here, and today we are doing an Amazon Vine review. This item was provided to me to review by Amazon as part of the Vine program, so today I'm going to be showing you the GOOLOO Discovery 100 battery bank. This thing is really interesting. You can see right away when we compare it to a couple of other battery packs, it is very, very large. So I'm going to go through the GOOLOO. I'm going to talk about all of the pieces and parts and things on the GOOLOO, and I'm going to tell you what I really like about it, because there are some things that I really like about this battery pack. In fact, I think that this thing is awesome, and I'm going to explain why. Because at first glance, I didn't necessarily think it was awesome because I thought it was frankly too big. So let's go into this thing. Let's start breaking it down, and let's start talking about the GOOLOO Discovery 100 battery pack, what it is, what it does, what makes it worth what it costs, and why the size matters. So before we get started and dive into all the details, again, I'm going to go ahead and state that I received this item for review, and I'm going to be reviewing it today. I am not associated with this company or in any way, shape, or form, and I am not being compensated by them at all. And if you purchase or don't purchase them, I do not care. Frankly, I am just here to do the review because I love battery packs, and this is a cool battery pack. So let's just go ahead and review it. First of all, I'm going to pull up some stats on the GOOLOO. I've got the information on the GOOLOO from the Amazon listing here, and I just kind of want to tell you a little bit about the GOOLOO first. Before we jump, let me back up. Before we jump into stats, let's talk about one of the things that separates this battery pack here from the other two battery packs that I'm showing you on the table. These are Charge battery packs. This is a 20,000 milliamp hour battery pack, I believe, and I think this is either a 23 or 25,000 milliamp hour battery pack. And frankly, this battery pack is my large battery pack. This is the big battery pack that I have because it is larger. It's thicker than this one. But when this thing showed up, when the GOOLOO arrived and I opened it, I was expecting something like this. I was not expecting something like this. This is substantially larger. Here, in kind of comparing, you can just see how much beefier the GOOLOO is compared to these in almost every dimension. It is thin, which is really nice. And I think given the fact that this is so large, if it weren't thin, that would be a big problem. But the rest of the size is really large, and that's noteworthy. But it stands out from these two battery packs. This battery pack is a straight USB battery pack. It just has a USB-A and a USB-C, so it's a lot more simple. It's easy to keep a simple battery pack with inputs and outputs like this small, right? Less to put in. This battery pack is similar. It also has USB-A, has two USB-C, and this battery pack is starting to do something a little bit more versatile. This battery pack has a DC input and output. You can actually charge this with a DC cable, and you can also send DC out. I will come back to this because I want to talk a little bit about this DC port. The GOOLOO does both of what these battery packs do. It has USB-A and USB-C. It has two USB-C, exactly like this one. It also has a DC input-output, or actually I believe just output, like this one. But the GOOLOO comes with something else. It has an AC output on it. There's an inverter inside of this battery pack that lets you get not only power delivery on both USB-C ports, really nice USB-A ports with good power delivery, and a 10 amp 12 volt output port. Now, I don't think that you should use this at 10 amps. That's the maximum rating on this. I think at 10 amps, you would probably be really stressing this thing. I would not use it personally for probably more than 5 amps given the plug that is going into it. But the fact that this has AC input, you can plug a wall charger into this thing, makes it really versatile, and it actually makes this stand out in a way that these other battery packs just can't compete with, because having that extra AC power there is a really, really handy feature, especially if you are going camping, if you have a CPAP machine, if you are breastfeeding. There's a variety of different things that you could use this plug-in for that you might not be able to use with a USB-C port or even a standard 12 volt port just given, what you have around you. So this is very versatile. I love the fact that this has AC output, and that really makes it worth the size. If this did not have the AC output, I would state flat out, this is too big. But frankly, the fact that they have put an inverter in this unit and that it has AC output on it, I love that. And I didn't love it at first because my first thought was this thing is so big. But, once I started testing it, once I started using it, I actually kind of fell in love with this because of the AC port and because of the DC port over here. So aside from the fact that this has inputs and outputs like these batteries, it also comes with a light on the bottom, which is a nice feature. I have battery packs that have lights like this on the bottom as well. And, this light is pretty decent. It's fine. You could definitely use it to get around with as far as like if you're camping, but with how big this thing is, it would make a ridiculous flashlight. But you could use it for some ambient light in an emergency situation, which would be great because, in an emergency, not only would you have AC power and the ability to charge your phone, but you would also have a light with you, which means this thing is awesome for camping, which is great because it's actually made for outdoor use as well. At least that's what it says in the description. There isn't any kind of like outdoor texture or coating. This isn't rubberized in any way. It feels more like an indoor thing to me, but the versatility of what it's doing here and the light on it definitely feel like some outdoor features for sure. Okay, now that we've looked at all the different things on the GOOLOO, we can see some of the specs here on the back, and I'll just show you some of these specs and read them out to you. This is the Discovery 100 portable power station. It is the PB-53 model. Now, the battery capacity on this claims 99 watt hours. I haven't hooked this up to equipment yet to measure and test the drain. I'm kind of interested in doing so because most of the time, real world, these batteries don't typically give you what shows up here as far as the watt hour rating. Just like heat conversion, moving energy from one device to another, resistance and cables, all the things, temperature, whatever. Normally this is less. So I can't say, I can speculate, but I can't say what the actual watt hour capacity is because I haven't tested it. You can see here that on the USB-C 1 and USB-C 2 ports, both of those are 100 watt power delivery ports. That is very impressive. Most of the time, chargers and things like this will come with one power delivery, not two. The fact that this has two power delivery, very cool. Now, the thing to keep in mind, though, is this is a 99 watt hour battery and with a maximum of 100 watts. That means you can only use 100 watts from this battery at a time, which means you cannot plug two 100 watt devices in here and use 200 watts. Does that make sense? Hopefully so. It's kind of tricky. This is one of the trickier things in understanding these batteries and capacity and how they work. So, aside from the USB-C ports, here you can see that we have nice QC 3.0 charging on the USB-A ports, which is awesome. That means you get your 5 volt at 3 amp, your 9 volt at 2 amp, and your 12 volt at 1.5 amp. So that's your variable charging. That helps you to rapid charge things like your phone. For instance, if you know your wattage, which is your volts times your amps, you'll see that 5 volts at 3 amps is 15 watts, or 9 times 2, 18 watts, etc. So if you look at this, both of these USB-A ports are QC 3.0, which is really great. And additionally, the DC output port, like we talked about, is a 12 volt output port. Now, it says 10 amps, but I personally would not, I don't know of a cable that I have that I could plug into this that would deliver 10 amps without melting. So even though it says 10 amps, maybe that's on, peak power if something starts. I'm not sure, but I would personally not utilize this 12 volt output for more than 5 amps. That's 60 watts. And frankly, I think, just to be safe with your cable and whatever, that's what I would do. But you know what? You do you. This is not a safety lesson on electricity or anything like that. So here's kind of like the initial product information. Now, let me share with you some additional information that comes from the Amazon listing itself. So when it comes to this device, excuse me, we have the dimensions here listed at 5.32 inches this way and it is 8.5 inches this way. So 5.3 inches by 8.5 inches. This particular device, like I said, it's a 99 watt hour battery, which means essentially you can pull 99 watts for up to 1 hour, and then this thing would be depleted. But that is like the max. You would not want to use a battery in a way where you would charge it full and then just drain it. You can, but it is very hard on the life of the battery, and it probably won't last as long. So this has simultaneous charging. You can plug multiple devices into this. And the really convenient thing about this is that, like I said, on the listing from Amazon, it says it is both rated for indoor and outdoor use. They show camping. That's part of the reason why we have the nice SOS light here in the bottom when you cycle through. The other thing that's really nice about this, okay, so we've talked about discharge, plugging things into this so far, what you can, send out for power. But this has rapid charging in. It has 100 watt in charging, which is really nice because when you plug this thing in, which you can charge it from either of these USB-C ports, which I love that because over time, my battery packs, I use them a lot, and sometimes the ports get messed up, and I have definitely been saved by battery packs like this that have a secondary charging port. So the fact that you can plug this in and get 100 watt charging into this battery is great. This says that you can charge it from 0 to 100% in 1 hour, and I can back that. I have drained this battery, plugged it in on a rapid 100 watt charger, and it charged right away. It was very, very quick. By the way, there's a display here that shows the percentage of the battery, and I'm hoping that you can see that on camera. I'm going to demonstrate that in just a second. Let me talk a little bit also about some of the safety protections on this that are listed. So on the Amazon website, they talk about having overload protection, which is really important if you're going to be plugging things into this AC port. You need to understand wattage. So essentially, if you are going to be using this AC port, you need to know that this is for relatively low power use AC things. You are not going to be plugging in a vacuum cleaner to this, or you are going to probably trigger the over discharge and overload protection, and it will shut off. So essentially, if we think about the math and we think 99 watts, and we know that most AC power is usually 110 to 120 volts, then we know that we're going to get less than an amp out of this when we're really taxing this at full power. So realistically, for me, if I were going to use an AC device with this, just to kind of be safe and treat the battery well and know that I'm within the limits of what this thing can handle, I would probably only use it for about, again, 50, 60, maybe 70 watts. That's where I would feel comfortable and safe because I would want to keep this battery lasting a long time. Okay, cool. The additional protections on this, aside from just the overload protection, over discharge protection, there's also short circuit protection, overcharge protection, over current protection, and temperature protection. So really interesting. So we've talked about kind of some of the protections built in and all this stuff. Let me talk about real world use for this. So again, big. This is a big battery pack, and having the AC is nice, and having something that's great for camping, whatever, good. But if you don't camp a lot, you wouldn't really want to have a battery like this just sitting around necessarily, because you'd need to keep it charged. You might not use it very often. It might take up a lot of space. If that's something that's not important to you, then this battery is not going to be the thing. But if you are looking for something that has high versatility for daily use, especially if you have the right use cases for it, this battery is phenomenal. So I'm going to show you one of the use cases for my family that this battery is going to get a lot of life and use out of for more than just camping. So I'm going to show you something that might look a little unconventional given what we're talking about. Let me move some things out of the way here. This is a breast milk pump. I recently had a child, and my wife is pumping. So it is inconvenient to use this breast milk pump at times because it is relatively portable. I mean, it's not too big, but you have to have AC power. It doesn't come with anything as far as DC power. So it is really, really nice to have a battery like this, which would fit very easily inside of our diaper bag. And it does actually. It's not crazy heavy. And it's really nice because if you plug into it, you turn the battery pack on. You can see, you might be able to see here. I'll try to get a shot of the, I might share a photo of these later. But if you press the AC button, a little AC indicator turns on, and now we can actually use this pump. You can hear it running. That is super cool. So the fact that this means that now when I'm traveling, my partner can take her breast pump with us, we can throw it into our backpack or whatever, and we can charge this if we're sitting at the airport, waiting for coffee, doing whatever. Now pumping is completely accessible. So it's really cool to be able to plug this AC power adapter in. The other thing that would be really awesome is if this battery pack actually came with a DC to DC cable. Now I happen to have a DC to DC cable that I have for other things. Here we go, if I can find it. So this is a DC to DC cable. This is just a barrel jack cable, pigtailed together. So I can actually plug this in, and because this is putting out 12 volts, which is the exact same DC power that the Spectra wants, then I can also power the battery pack on, and I can also run this pump directly from the DC port as well. If I shut AC power off, now the DC power will run. So that's really cool. Now, let's talk for a second about this cable and the difference between using this cable with this battery pack and using this AC converter. So what is happening here and what am I doing and why does it matter? Well, this battery pack has an inverter inside of it, which means it has DC batteries inside of here that are being converted into AC power, which can be used by these things. Now, the interesting thing is this thing takes AC power, and if you read really closely on the switching power adapter, it converts it into DC power. So let's just kind of follow it for a second here. You are taking, if you use the plug here for a 12 volt device, you are taking DC power here, converting it to AC, converting it back to DC, and then feeding it to your device. Because there are a lot of things out there that use 12 volts, it's incredibly convenient because now, not only when you use this, instead, when you use a cable that connects, which by the way, you need a power rated cable, you need to have a good cable, unless you know what you're doing, don't make your own cables. Be very careful and wary of cables and make sure that you're buying the right thing for your stuff. You wouldn't want to ruin a really nice piece of equipment with something that's the wrong cable, reverse voltage, etc. But if you can buy one of these online, which you can, then you can actually use a more efficient method for powering this pump by feeding 12 volt DC power directly to this device instead of alternating it into AC back to DC. So not only does that matter from efficiency, this cable is lighter to use and it is more power efficient not to convert the power into AC and then back to DC. Anyway, I'm not an electrician or an expert on electricity. I'm just talking to you about what I know with my own experience. So anyway, disclaimer, just letting you know that I am not an electrician, and you should always be careful and take advice from qualified electricians and people who know what they are doing. So if you have questions or thoughts on anything, look it up. Do not use this video as your frame of reference, but you can use this to look up other things from qualified professionals. So anyway, there you have that disclaimer. Don't burn your house down and blame me for it. Please. Anyway, be safe with your power stuff. And if you don't know what you're doing, look it up, find information. It's easy to find and it's not too difficult to understand. Talk to your favorite AI assistant, ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. They will help you find and understand what it is that you need, but be safe because you don't want to damage your equipment. So now I'm going to land on the last thing here. I mentioned that I was going to come back to the DC port on this. And this is something where the GOOLOO really won me over. The DC port on this battery pack is a standard DC port size. I can't remember what that is. I think it's 3.5 millimeter, but the fact that this is a standard DC port that works, it's the same size that is on so many items. It's like a universal 12 volt port size. You can see it plugs in here. I love that. Now, why would I mention that? Because the Charge Power Pack does not use a port that fits this. It is just not the right size. You actually need an adapter to go down. So when I was really kind of evaluating the GOOLOO and thinking about all the stuff that it's capable of doing, including the fact that we have dual power outputs and inputs, that we have a 10 amp up to 12 volt output plus AC power, and it's a usable DC port, I loved that. So Anyway, sorry for blowing up the mic there. Overall, that's the GOOLOO. So many ports, so much battery. It's big, it's beefy, but it's easy to use. It's really versatile, and frankly, I like it a lot. This is going to spend a lot of time in my backpack as far as traveling with us in our diaper bag for things like this. It's definitely going to wind up in my camping stuff because of that DC power output, which is so nice. And, you know, I think like this is actually going to wind up going in my stroller as well, because I've got some lights on our stroller, and this thing is just perfect for that, especially with a large capacity battery in here. So anyway, that's the GOOLOO. Yeah, I kind of dig it. I don't know. Maybe you tell me what you think. If you have battery packs like this, I'd love to hear from you. If you actually have the GOOLOO and you've had it for a period of time, I would really love to hear what your experience has been and what you think. But anyway, that's it. Thanks so much for watching.